Hi guys, today I would like to show you rendering station rendering GPUs. Um, at default it will be rendering at two RTX 2080 Ti's, which are on water cooling. We can see it here. The third card is just for viewports. So, what can be done with such a workstation? I will show you in a moment. Okay. The fans are now set to low RPMs. At clients it will be going faster because he said he would like to have them cooled much more. But anyway, we will start from Octane benchmark. We will get to the program which will control our wattage, and so we have here 30 degrees at cards, about 40 something at CPU, which is now working a little bit. But anyway, now we have Octane benchmark. We will disable from Octane the third card, so GTX 1080 Ti. We will run the benchmark, and now what we will do is testing the machine with user bench. So at the same moment when we are rendering at cards in Octane, which is kinda heavy for GPUs from 300 to 240 watts, we will now push the benchmark here. So we have start. The platform is completely regulated with voltage, CPU input voltage, RAM voltage, and every other little thing. This, as I said, is a low fan profile. So fans are running very low. The fans are connected to CPU. So if CPU is getting out of the some temperatures, the fans will be going with higher RPMs. That's a little bit shame that even with Aorus Gigabyte we have the port to connect the fans, but it's under the block. And I was trying in many ways to get into that port with the cable, but I wasn't able to. So after really big testing, I chose to set it to be operated by CPU temperatures, and it is working fine. So cards are not going over 55 degrees when on standard, let's say standard for me, standard RPM profile for the fans, but right now it might get to 57 after 3 hours of rendering, because for now it's not that hard. As you can see, the cards are rendering, the CPU is working, and yeah, so we have 40 something degrees. Using a third card is a must for having operatable viewports. But the funny thing is that I will tell you that you cannot get into the BIOS on the third card. You have to switch with the cable to the first PCI Express port at this motherboard. It's XPOWER Gaming AC from MSI X299, and yeah, it will not get into the UEFI BIOS. So, as we can see, the benchmark is going, the one and the second, and we are probably finishing. There's my USB key inserted into the station, so this is FAT32 for saving profiles. So it might get a bit low in time, but anyway. So right now it is hearable. I cannot say it's not. But it's not too hard. We are finishing user benchmark. And what do we see? We see gaming at 127, desktop 159, workstation 166. We can see that we have very good scores for CPU, the third GPU, disks, and RAM, which is also regulated. What's the standard? The standard for this is gaming 114, desktop 126, and workstation 130 for this benchmark when it's not being used for rendering. The client asked me to build a station that will be able to be work with viewports in 3ds Max and other programs while having render going on. So I think it is done, but I will show you that the funny thing is that here we are using 250 watts at Octane. We will use V-Ray in a moment with all assets that we have, and the wattage is different. This computer is in fact moved from Fractal R2, so it is those, not all the parts are new. Here we have a score of 690.66. The best score is about 691 something, so we are really not far from the best score for this two cards, while having a benchmark going. Now we will use different thing, so we are starting V-Ray bench, and we will use for it every asset that we have. So all three GPUs and CPU. We are starting right now. As I said, fans are connected to the CPU temperature, so we can hear that fans while being while rendering at CPU are getting at higher RPMs. CPU is working with 4.5 gigahertz. And we are at 80 degrees. Here is 1000 watt PSU, which is StraightPower from Be Quiet, and it is working fine. I have to say, I was thinking that I will be able to close the CPU, the PSU, with this kind of drag, but I didn't. I haven't managed to close it even one time. So that's the funny thing. That I would say that it would demand about 1300 PSU. But in fact, StraightPower 11 is able to deliver about 900 watts. This we have 300 at CPUs, 200 something at GPUs RTX 2080 Ti's, and 200 at GTX 1080 Ti. With RAM and all the stuff, we are, I think, much closer to 950. And the result is almost the same as I get for different language videos. So almost 27,000 at CPU and almost 1160 at V-Ray GPU. So we will start a new test. We will disable Intel and the GTX 1080 Ti from the test, and we will start the test, and we will again make user benchmark. I didn't use Affinity for this test, so I didn't give affinities to cores because it's not really demanding while having the rendering at, oh no, I'm sorry. There's a mistake. I shouldn't use V-Ray CPU for while testing the user benchmark. Damn. Happy, but it's not the truth. Yeah, while doing benchmarks at making benchmarks of V-Ray CPU, it's not really. Okay, never mind. We will stop this, and start over. Well, benchmark in benchmark. Yes. So now we are rendering at GPUs, and we are making test of CPUs and GPU, which is not used currently for rendering. Now it's much more, let's say, logic. But we will have to start tests few times over, because V-Ray GPU test is only 1 minute, so we have to start it 3 or 4 times to be able to test the machine during this rendering. I'm not a really big talker, because if I don't have anything to say, I would like to remain silent. That's why I like silent computers, and that's my goal. To not be all time hearing this all noise. So anyway, I think in a few moments we will finish the tests. As you can see, that the power draw at V-Ray GPU is much lower than at Octane. Again, we are starting another test. The machine is able to be working in both modes, CPU and GPU, Corona, V-Ray, and all the renderers which are for CPU are also being able to be used, because the CPU was tested in YCruncher tests, and it is not overheating or anyway, so we have another gap of 20% through this. So we have again, no, I don't want to submit my score. That's the way the cookie crumbles. This is not the completed test. Whoops. We've started again because I chose to submit and I closed Internet Explorer. Please forgive me. And anyway, you will be able to see what kind of temperatures we are having with this workstation while being tested in operations and while rendering at two GPUs at the same time. So we are getting with the test again and again and again. So it looks a bit like rendering an animation. So you can see that that there is no problem with overheating. The temperatures at this point are all the time stable. The temperatures of CPU, GPU are at the same level, despite having it really quiet. So you would be able to be, let's say, watching a movie or anything. The funny thing is, when the CPU is working harder, the RPM of the fans is getting higher, and then the GPU temperatures for RTX, which are rendering, is getting lower. So we are all the time having right now the 2070-2055 GPU clocks with this machine. So hopefully we are finishing the second time the benchmark. I don't know what was the error at the beginning, so I hope the outcome will be the same as it was on Polish version. But anyway, 45 seconds. Start a new test. Yes, it's very boring. You don't even know how boring sometimes working with that big machines, which have to be thoroughly tested by my standard. So yeah, it is kind of boring, really. In fact, I'm hearing the fans if they're going to be okay. This is very interesting. It's even better than it was in Polish version. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so gaming 126, desktop 162, and workstation 167. So this is the best, I think, the best score for this workstation. As you can see, 98.8 percentile of this of the CPUs while rendering. So everything is fine. This is my USB key with profiles saved from this station. So RAM is getting high, everything is on high, and the standard again 114, 126, and 130. And this workstation while rendering is 126, 162, and 167. So yes, it is possible to have rendering workstation on CPUs while having being while being able to be working with many different programs. So that was the score, and the score is achieved. So what can I say? Thank you very much for your attention. Sorry for big gaps in talking, and have a nice day.